Kimberly from Fat Quarter Shop, and today we're going to make the Jolly Bar Jig. It's our newest addition to our shortcut quilt series. Download your free quilt pattern at Fat Quarter Shop. A link is in the description box. This pattern features a layout for a small and large lap quilt using Jolly Bars. Jolly Bars are pre-cuts only available at Fat Quarter Shop, and they measure 5 by 10 inches. To make this quilt, you need 1 Jolly Bar and 3/4 yards of a background. We're using the Summertime Collection by Camille Ross Kelly and Moda Fabrics. This quilt is so easy because you're going to be using rectangles from your Jolly Bars, and then you're going to be making Jolly Bar Jig blocks, which are just 2 rectangles sewn together. It's so easy, and if you can sew a 1/4 inch seam, you can make this quilt. After you've gathered all your supplies, let's get sewing. So for this quilt, we're going to take all of our Jolly Bar rectangles and we're going to cut them down to 4.5 by 9.5 inch rectangles. And the reason we're doing that is a lot of us starch, and so when you starch, your Jolly Bar is going to shrink a little bit. So this will give us room to starch. You're going to cut 32 of your Jolly Bars just like this, and you'll have some left over you can save for either the back of the quilt or for another project. 16 of your Jolly Bar rectangles are going to stay just like this. The remaining 16, you're going to put them right sides together, and then you're going to sew a 1/4 inch away from the seam on both sides. This is what it looks like, and it kind of makes a little envelope, but here are your stitches. Then you're going to take this, and along the length, you're going to cut this in half. And so 4.5 inches divided by 2 is 2.25. So if you cut on the 2.25 inch line, once you cut those apart, you're going to have 4 inch by 9.5 inch Jolly Bar Jig blocks. And you're just going to press this to one side, super easy. And then you're going to be ready to already start assembling all of your rows together. Now this quilt is so simple. You're going to be making 4 rows, and your rows are going to be so simple. You're going to take a Jolly Bar rectangle, a Jolly Bar Jig block, and you're going to repeat that until you have 4 of each. So you're just alternating your rectangles and your blocks. You're going to make 4 rows of this, and then when we put it together, you'll see that each of the rows you flip. So here are your rows. You're going to have sashing, and all of that cutting is in your pattern, and then you're going to have outer borders. You can see that we've alternated and flipped our rows just to add variety. And with this, we did use the background from the collection, but if you're looking to use a Bella Solid, 9900-200 would be a great match to this collection. The quilt I'm showing you here is the small lap quilt. We used a red stripe binding, and we used a really fun backing with that pop of orange. Now, just so you know, in the free pattern, there's also an instruction for a large lap quilt. The Jolly Bar Jig pattern is a great weekend project, and it's also a great project if you want to teach your kids how to quilt. Now let me know, are you going to use your quilt and make it with 1 Jolly Bar, or are you going to mix up your Jolly Bars? Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Hi, I'm Kimberly with the Fat Quarter Shop, and today is the perfect day to bake up a Jolly Bar BAKEWELL quilt. This quilt is super beginner friendly, and all you need is 1 Jolly Bar, and today we're using the Canning Day Jolly Bar, and 1 solid background. It's super easy, so let's get started. Go to Fat Quarter Shop and download the free Jolly Bar BAKEWELL quilt so you can sew along with us. It's a completely free pattern. Now today we're using some Corey Yoder fabric by Moda, and I selected Aurifil 2021 for my thread. When I'm picking thread, I usually match my background, whatever the lightest fabric is, so that your thread will be less likely to show. So that's what I'm using today. And this is super easy. You're gonna cut everything in the pattern before you get started, and I'm gonna show you how you sew your block. Each block uses 2 coordinating sets. So you've got 40 pieces in your Jolly Bar, and you're going to pair 2 together of 20. So you're going to have 20 sets. So when you're making your first unit, you're going to put 1 from each set of B's and a D, stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and this is your unit. Super basic, super beginner. And you just want to make sure you have an accurate 1/4 inch seam and your block will come out perfectly. So that's your first unit. Your second unit is going to be a fabric A rectangle and a fabric C rectangle, stitch with a 1/4 inch seam, and this is going to be your unit. And then what you're going to do is take the 2 units you just made and stitch those together, and you're going to have this unit. You're going to make 40 total. To continue building your block, this is so easy. Just sew a fabric E rectangle to a fabric A rectangle, and it's going to look like this, and that's really almost the last unit you need to make. Then you're just going to attach that. So you're going to attach that to your previously sewn unit, and you just want to make sure that you're not stitching this way. And what you can do to remember that is that you've got 3 on top. So you're going to sew that together, and this is going to be a unit, and you will have enough to make 2 matching units, and you're going to want to put those together. And you're going to see that it kind of makes a circle. So you want to make sure you don't do this, because then you don't have a circle. So you're going to do that. And here is your beautiful block, and I'm going to show you next how you can trim this up with the Creative Grids ruler. Whenever you're making a block, I like to trim my blocks up. You don't have to. It's totally optional. It's just something that I like to do so that everything goes together nicely. What I do is I'll use a Creative Grids ruler and just put it on the very edge and trim. And that just gives it a really nice clean cut. It's going to get all of your threads off the edge. And you can see I'm really taking nothing off. I'm just getting all the little threads off and anything that's sticking out off. And there is your beautiful block. And next I will show you assembly. Now all you have to do is assemble your quilt. You're going to place 4 blocks in a row, and you're going to make 5 rows. You'll want to pay attention to your pattern because you're going to be alternating your blocks so that you get a movement in your quilt. Super easy. Just lay out everything before you start sewing it together. Then you'll sew your rows together, attach your side borders, and then attach your top and bottom borders. I can't wait to see all of your Jolly Bar BAKEWELL quilts on social media, so make sure to tag us so we can see your quilts, and I would love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see more videos like this. See you next time. Hey guys, welcome to our next episode of our Shortcut Quilt series. Today we're going to be making the Jolly Bar Jazz quilt. It's super quick, super easy. You can find the Jolly Bars at Fat Quarter Shop, and today we're making it using the Creekside collection by Moda Fabrics. So let's get started. So we're going to start with our corner unit. It's super simple. You're just going to put 2 fabric D rectangles with a fabric A rectangle. You're going to press toward the gray print. And now what we're going to do is we're going to cut this on the diagonal. So first what we're going to do is we're going to find the center. And this is pretty important so that this gives your block an actual, the right placement. So I would say take your time on this step, don't rush it. So we found the center. We've got lines. We're going to take a Creative Grids 6.5 inch ruler. We're going to place the center line on our crease, and we're going to place the points on this crease. And when we do that, it's going to give the block a uniform look. So I'm going to place it there, Use a rotating mat, and we're going to cut this out. It's my favorite mat. I've had mine for 10 years. So there we've got our corner unit. You're going to make 48. Our next step is to do our center unit, and again, it's very simple. You're going to put a fabric B rectangle with a fabric E rectangle, stitch with a 1/4 inch seam, press towards your gray. And then from here, we're going to cut 2 rectangles. We're going to cut 5 inches across. That basically cuts that in half and gives you 2 5 by 6.5 inch rectangles, and we're going to make a total of 48. Now let's put our block together. We're rolling right along on our Jolly Bar Jazz quilt. You're going to take 4 corner units and 4 center units and your fabric C rectangle. What you're going to want to make sure is your gray is placed correctly and all the way in the center, because when you're doing a quick, easy block, sometimes you can just go a little too fast. Or at least that's what I do. So make sure everything's placed out or placed, on your table. And then also what you're gonna do is make sure all your fabrics are different. You're gonna make 3 rows. And we're gonna stitch these together with a 1/4 inch seam. Press according to your pattern, and then we're gonna stitch those together. You're gonna make 12 blocks that are 17 inches square. Now let's start putting our quilt together. Your first step in your assembly is to put your rows together. We're going to make 4 rows. Each row has 3 blocks and 2 fabric F sashings. So what I like to do is put all my rows together. Then you're going to put all your rows together with your fabric G sashing and press. Then you're going to have your quilt center. Then from there you can attach your side borders and your top and bottom borders. With a Jolly Bar Jazz quilt, you get big blocks in a short amount of time with great accuracy. This would be a great college dorm room quilt. I can't wait to see what you guys make with a Jolly Bar Jazz. See you next time. Hey guys, welcome to this episode of our shortcut quilts. This is called Jolly Bar Bonbons, and all you need is 1 Jolly Bar, a background fabric, binding, and backing. And Jolly Bars are custom to Fat Quarter Shop, and they are rectangles that are 5 by 10 inches. So let me show you how you make this quilt. So the first step in our bonbon quilt is half square triangles. You're going to take a fabric B and fabric C square, put them right sides together. I'm going to pin on each side. I'm sewing today with Aurifil color 2024, which is a bright white, and I'm doing that because it matches really well to the background. And when I'm working with thread, I always tend to go lighter to match my background. So that's the color I'm using today. I'm going to use a friction pin and draw a line a 1/4 inch away from the center line that I've already drawn. And I'm going to stitch directly on these outer lines. I'm going to be using an open toe foot, and we're just going to sew on those lines. So from here, you're going to cut on that center line, cut those apart, and we're going to press. We'll set our seams. I do use steam when I'm ironing. I'm going to press toward the darker fabric this time. You'll cut your little dog ears off. You're going to make a total of 72 half square triangles. And if you're somebody who loves to work with triangle paper, you can also make these with 3-inch finished triangle paper. Now we're going to add a half square triangle to a fabric D rectangle. Just make sure you've got your half square triangle aligned correctly. You're going to stitch with a 1/4 inch seam and press toward the fabric D rectangle. It's going to look like this. You're going to make 72 total, and basically you're going to have 2 from each Jolly Bar. So we're halfway done with our block. The next part is you're going to use a fabric A square and 2 fabric E rectangles. Stitch with a 1/4 inch seam and press towards your white. You're going to make 36 of these. This is the center of your bonbon block. Then we're going to pull the pieces we made previously on, and the bottom one we're going to flip. Then you're going to stitch with a 1/4 inch seam, and these 2 seams you're going to press open, and this is your beautiful bonbon block. And you're going to make 36 of them, which is 1 for each Jolly Bar square. So now once you have all your blocks together, you're going to put them in quadrants. So you'll just lay out 3 blocks by 3 blocks, all of your blocks going the same exact way. Follow the pressing in the pattern, and then you're going to make 4 of these. When you have all 4 done, you're just going to follow the pattern so that you place them, that it makes kind of like a little diamond in the center, and your quilt is going to be done. This is a great beginner quilt. It is very easy. This is a great quilt. This could be your first quilt. So download the free pattern at Fat Quarter Shop. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you next time. I'm Kimberly from Fat Quarter Shop, and we're back with another shortcut quilt. This quilt is so easy. It's called Jolly Bar Jump, and it is great for beginners and great for something if you want to do a quick gift on the weekend. All you need is 1 Jolly Bar and 2 solid charm packs. Today we're using Bella color 200. Now you could also use yardage for this and just cut your yardage down into 5-inch charm packs also, or 5-inch squares. We're going to use RFL color 2000, and I'm just going to use the Creative Grids Perfect 10 ruler since the squares that we're working with are 9.5-inch square. So that's going to work perfectly. Your free pattern has instructions on how to make the lap pattern, and you can download that at Fat Quarter Shop. And we also have a free size guide to make a toddler or a twin. So pick that up at Fat Quarter Shop, and I'm going to show you how easy this one is. So let's get started. Our first step is to work with our Jolly Bar. Jolly Bars are exclusive to Fat Quarter Shop, and they're 5 by 10-inch rectangles, and you get 42 in a pack. On this pattern, we're going to actually trim down to 5 by 9.5. So we're just going to take the Creative Grids Perfect 10 ruler and just line up the 9.5 and trim, and that's all the waste you have. So that is great. Very little waste in this pattern. Then you're going to take 2 of these rectangles that are different, and we're going to label them as our A's. And then we're going to put these together. So you would put them right sides together, and we're going to pin. So I like to pin a couple of times in this, maybe at the beginning, the end, and once in the middle. And then you're going to go to your sewing machine and using color 2000 RFL thread and just use a 1/4 inch foot. I like to use the Juki 1/4 inch foot that has a guide, and you just go straight down, and then you're going to press, and when you press, you want to press this open, and you're going to make 35 of these for the lap. We're going to leave 17 just like this, And then we're gonna take 18 of these and add corner squares. So we're gonna take our 5-inch squares and on the wrong side, draw a line from corner to corner on all 4. And if you don't have charm packs, you can just cut 72 5-inch squares. On this fabric, since it's solid, there's not really a wrong or right side. So you can draw on any side. You're gonna place your 5-inch squares on 2 opposing corners. It doesn't matter which corners. And I like to make sure that all of the fabric on the side and the bottom is lined up. And I do put 3 pins in place. That way when you're stitching, nothing will move. And then you're going to take an open toe foot. And with an open toe foot, you can see where your needle is going to go. We're going to stitch directly on these lines using color 2000, and then we'll be right back. So now that we've stitched directly on the line, I'm going to cut 1/4 inch away from that seam. And then we're going to press these open, and it will look just like this, nice and open, so you have all these seams really nice and flat. And then we're going to do the same exact thing on the remaining corners. Now, of course, you could do 1 corner at a time. I think the most important part is really pinning here so that when you stitch and you fold over, it matches. So for example, if it's not pinned, for example, and you do that, you're going to have a weird looking corner, and then your points here and here aren't going to line up. So add these, stitch, trim, and this is how your diamond block will look, and we're going to make 18 of these. Assemble your quilt center by alternating your Jolly Bar jump blocks with your diamond blocks. Press toward your Jolly Bar jump blocks. Assemble your rows and then press down. Then you're going to add your side borders and press, and your top and bottom borders and press. We would love for you to share your Jolly Bar jump quilts with us on social media so we can see them. We now have over 40 shortcut quilt videos for you, and the patterns are completely free. So subscribe to our channel, shop at Fat Quarter Shop, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, today we're gonna make a Jolly Bar Dresden. You're gonna love it. It's a super easy project. Now we don't have a pattern for this. It's just gonna be the video, so make sure you watch the whole video and you're gonna have a lot of fun today making this. So let's get started. Your first step is to pick 12 Jolly Bar rectangles to make your Dresden circle. So I've taken the Cozy Up collection and I've selected 12. We're gonna cut Dresdens out of all 12. And I also selected a plaid for the center. We're gonna work with this one later, so set this one aside. But what's great to do is pick your pieces, take a photo with your cell phone, so that when you come back to it, you already remember your fabric placement. So the one thing that you do have to make this is the Starburst It's So Emma ruler by Creative Grids. And what you'll wanna do is we're gonna lay this 1-inch line at the bottom and then cut on all sides. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and cut a straight line just so it's a little bit more accurate, and just cut this little pinked edge off. And I did want to tell you that I did go ahead and starch all of my Jolly Bar rectangles, and I do think it's important because you have so much bias here, and you're going to notice that in your next step. So go ahead and starch everything and let it dry. So you've just got the 1-inch line at the bottom, and then you just cut all the sides, and you're going to do this for all 12 Jolly Bar rectangles, and this is what your unit will look like. So go ahead and cut the remaining 11. So I have my Dresden all laid out, and remember this one's going to be our center circle, so I'm going to set that aside and we're just going to remember to not cut that. And we're going to sew this into a ring. And what I'm going to do is put two fabrics right sides together, and because I have starched, you're not going to have as much movement, but this is a bias, and so it is going to have a lot of bend in it. So because of that, to make this accurate, I'm going to pin at each end twice in the center. And it does seem like, oh, you don't need pins, but I promise you, after making several of these samples, you definitely need to pin. We're going to go to the sewing machine. I'm going to backstitch at the beginning and the end, stitch all the way to the end, and backstitch again. I'm also going to be using a 1.2 stitch length, super tiny, because we are going to be pressing this open. And I'm going to lay this back here, and I'm going to go all the way around the circle, and we're going to do two at a time. We're going to come back and then press after we have the first parts put together. So the reason we backstitch at the beginning and the end is you will see when we start building this, we will be turning fabric inside out, and you don't want your stitches to come out. So from here, this is kind of how it's looking. Now I'm going to show you how we will press these units before we add the next pieces together. From here, I'm going to set my seam by just placing my iron on this nice and flat. Let it sit there about 5 seconds. Then press to one side. And I'm going to put the crease of the iron right on that. Let that sit about 5 seconds. And then we're going to press open, run the iron over the crease. And then I'll just put my clapper here. That's going to absorb the heat and make it nice and flat, and I'm going to continue to do the remainder of these units. I laid this back out in my circle, and if you separate, you'll see that this is one half and this is another half. So what I'm going to do is stitch this half together, stop, stitch this half together, stop, press, and then come back and stitch the last two units. So let's do the top and the bottom half first. And now we're going to iron the top and the bottom pieces. So we have two seams to iron. I would start on this bottom one, set this seam, press to one side, set the second seam, press to one side, and then press these open. So now I'm going to put these right sides together, and I'm going to pin at the edge of each within the center, and then I'm going to sew each seam. Now, if you do this and you sew just like this, you're going to have a better result than if you just try to sew everything into one big circle. Now from here, I am going to clip all these little strings off, just so there's no extra bulk, and then I'm going to iron this the same way I have been ironing. So when you're done, everything should lay nice and flat. You should not have big bumps inside your Dresden. So it should be flat on the front and the back. The next step is to prepare our backing. So we have chosen this fabric for our backing, and we cut a 20-inch square. We also have the Quilterstream Fusible 80/20 batting. On the batting is a sticker that tells you which side is fusible side. So you want the fusible side down. So I'll remove the sticker. And You can tell which side is fusible. If you touch it, it's rougher. This side is softer. Whichever brand you use, make sure it is only fusible on one side. And we're gonna take an iron and we're gonna fuse it together, but before we do that, we're gonna get everything nice and flat. And again, these are both 20-inch squares. And this is the fusible side. So if you see any of that coming up, you don't want your iron to touch it because it will ruin your iron. Just place your iron on here and just leave your iron about 10 seconds all the way across and just take your time. You want to make sure there's no creases and you just want to make sure that everything is fused together because that will help you on your next step. Now that you have that done, you're going to put your batting side down, backing side up, and Dresden circle face down. Now I'm going to pin this down. We will be stitching 1/4 inch away from the edge on all sides, so you want to make sure your pins are not going to interfere with your stitching. So I'm going to place a lot of pins so it will not shift. So from here, I put a lot in the center, and when you pick this up and move it around, it should be very flat on the back. It should be very flat on the front. You'll have to be careful because there are a lot of pins and they will poke you. I would rather get poked than be inaccurate though. So you kind of have to decide how many pins you're comfortable with. And we're going to be stitching 1/4 inch away from the seams, and we're going to pivot right in those intersections. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw 1/4 inch lines on the edge of the entire thing, but it is hard when you pivot to know exactly where to pivot, and if you draw these lines, it will be more accurate. So at this point, we're going to be using a walking foot. And a walking foot is a foot that is going to pull the bottom and the top at the same time. And anytime you're working with something with batting, you're going to get better results. So I am going to use a walking foot, and I'm going to follow my lines. The friction pin ink will disappear with heat later, so make sure you don't iron before you stitch on these lines. It is important in every point to pivot and have a clean pivot for when we turn this over later. Because you're going through so many layers and there's just so much going on, it's best if you have a flat surface. So we've added a bed to our sewing machine so it's nice and flat. And I'm going to be using top stitch size 90 needles because that's going to give you a better result going through all of the layers. So before I start stitching over here, I'm going to test my stitch length. I'm going to start with a 2.0. So this is my stitch length. You'll see it's nice and tight, and the reason why is you don't want a long stitch length, or when you pivot, it's not going to be as easy. So I'm just going to start in the middle of one of the Dresdens, it doesn't matter where, and you want to have your sewing machine in the needle down position and just stitch on the lines and pivot as close to the point as you can. And if it doesn't go exactly to the point, then you can hand move the dial where it goes exactly in your drawn line. And you're going to do this all the way around your Dresden. Now we've got back to the beginning where we started our stitches. So just stitch and then go about 1 inch over your previous stitches. So you've sewn all the way around, and now I'm going to pull the pins out, and on the back it should be nice and flat, and you can just make sure there's no pins. So from here I'm going to cut right on the edge of the Dresden, and at this point you can iron the friction pin lines out if you want, but since we're going to do an overall press at the end, they're going to come out in that step, so it's up to you. So from here I'm going to just use long bladed scissors and first just cut all the way around the outside. On each tip, we're going to cut a little top off. You want to be about a 1/16 of an inch away from the stitch. So you're going to do that. And then I'm going to cut a little bit off here also. And that's going to remove the bulk so that the point can be nice when we get to it. So I'm going to do that first, and then we're going to cut in here in a second. So we're going to do the same thing in the V. We're going to just cut a tiny bit out so that this can turn nice. So now we're going to turn this inside out, and you're going to see that's why we backstitch, so that these stitches don't start falling out. And it's going to get wrinkled, but we're going to iron it and it'll get all fixed. But what you want to do is just pull a tiny bit out at a time. Now I'm going to use a point turner. So for here, you want to make sure you don't push through your fabric. I'm actually going to use this side to start, and you'll just push so that your seam allowance is flat and the curved side is less likely to poke out, and you just kind of maneuver where everything is going to be nice and flat. So from here, you're just going to use your iron and get everything nice and flat. I have turned the steam off so it doesn't get too wrinkly. Now you don't need to worry about the center because we're going to put a circle over the center. So from here, you just want to get everything nice and flat because we're going to quilt this down. On the top, you want to see only the orange, not the white. So you want to tuck this in and just iron. And if any of your points don't look sharp enough, you can use this. I have moved my stitch length to a 3.0 since I think the quilting looks better at a longer stitch. I'm going to find a guide on my walking foot to follow, and I'm going to start in the center, go out around each petal and back. And I'm going to do that on each petal, and when I'm done, I'll show you how it looks. I'm not going to cut my thread as I go around because you will see that on the back. work on the circle that goes in the center of your Dresden, and I'm going to use the 4.5-inch circle from the rotary cutting circle ruler set from Creative Grids. It has lots of circles, but I'm going to use the 4.5-inch size. But you don't have to use this. You can just get a mug from your house that's just a wide mouth and kind of, you know, about 4.5 inches around. But I'm going to use this circle. I'm going to use the Sew-In Interfacing by Lori Holt that's non-fusible. I'm going to just draw this circle with a friction pen because it will disappear with heat later. And I'm going to put this on top of my fabric that is used for the center. And you can kind of see the design, so you know you can move it around. I'm going to try to get the check in the center, and to do that I'm going to fold this in fourths and try to center this. I'm going to pin this in place. We're going to go back to that open toe foot and a 1.5 stitch length, and we're just going to stitch all the way around the circle, and I'll be back right after I do that. Now I'm going to cut about 1/8 of an inch around the outside of the circle. And so your circle will turn nice when you flip it inside out. You can cut little V's. So from here, just separate your fabric and your interfacing, clip a hole, and then I'm just going to use my finger and run it across the edge. More of those little clips you put, the easier this is going to turn around. And the straighter you sewed on the line, the nicer your circle is going to come out. So here I'm going to press this down so it's nice and flat. Here's how my circle looks, and on the back you want it to look like this where it's not all torn open because this interfacing is keeping the shape. What I'm going to do here is fold it in fourths to find the center. I'm going to get the top of my Dresden, and I'm going to line up these with these lines so it's centered. So this line across and this line, and that gets it right in the center. So you can see my creases matched up here and my creases matched up here. And what I'm going to do is pin this in place and put the walking foot back on my machine and just stitch around in a circle, and I'm going to do the longer 3.0 stitch length. When you're working with a circle like this, if you keep your left hand and you just rotate your hand as you go, that's going to give you a nice stitch. And I did back stitch at the beginning and the end, and I'll just clip this little thread. I know exactly where this Jolly Bar Dresden is going in my house. These make quick gifts, and it only takes an hour. So pick up a Jolly Bar at Fat Quarter Shop and have fun sewing. Subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you next time. Cut. I'm Kimberly from Fat Quarter Shop, and today we're going to make a fast, fun quilt. You're going to love it, so let's jump right in. The fabric I'm using today is Kelly & Co. by Corey Yoder. The background I'm using is Bella Solid Color 200, a gray for my binding, a low volume for my backing, and today we're making the 48-inch square quilt, which is our small lap. You want to download this free pattern, and we're going to jump right in and get sewing. So let's talk about your Jolly Bar and if you can starch to make this quilt. That's the #1 question we get. And if you look at this Jolly Bar, I have starched it and it shrunk about 1/4 inch across this way right here. So what I wanted to show you is you can starch it. It will shrink slightly, but you have to be careful when you're cutting. Each Jolly Bar you need 1 4.5 inch square. So I'm going to cut that first and just show you. Get it as close to the edge as you can. So that one's easy. And this one was starched, so you can easily get that 4.5. But then you need 2 2.5 inch squares. So if you try to cut it this way, you won't have enough because you can see it shrunk exactly 1/4 inch this way. So to get your 2 2.5 inch squares, you have to go this way. So what I'll do is cut these 2 sides, cut 2.5 across, and then subcut this down. And from each Jolly Bar, the way that I've cut it is this way. So it's this, this, and this. And you just have a little tiny piece. I guess you could keep it if you wanted to. It's really small. It's only like 2 inches left. But you can starch if you want to make this. And what I would always recommend, no matter what pattern, so it tells you to cut 36 of your Jolly Bar rectangles up. Before you do all of them, cut one. Make sure you got it before you go on to all the rest of the pieces. So you could always start with your least favorite fabric. That way, in case you make a cutting mistake on that first cut, you mess up the fabric that you like the least. So now we've cut our fabrics, let's go ahead and assemble. The Jolly Bar Jumble is the pattern we're making today. It's part of our shortcut quilt series, and any of the videos that have shortcut in them mean they use pre-cuts. The pre-cut we're using today is a Jolly Bar that is exclusively available at Fat Quarter Shop. It is a stack of fabrics that are 5 inches wide by 10 inches tall. Now this quilt has 3 sizes. For your small lap quilt, you would use 1 Jolly Bar. For your large lap quilt, you would use 2 Jolly Bars. And for your queen, you would use 3 Jolly Bars. This quilt is so easy because the block can be made in 2 steps. So remember those 2.5 inch squares that we cut, you're gonna put those alternating. You're gonna add 2 background 2.5 inch squares, sew those together with a 1/4 inch seam, and when you go to press, you're gonna press towards your pink and your gray. You're gonna sew these together with a 1/4 inch seam. After you've sewn that first 1/4 inch seam, you're going to press towards your darker fabrics. Then you're going to do the very last seam and you're going to press that open. And this is how your piece is going to look on the front. And this is how it's going to look on the back. Now, of course, you can press any way you want. Totally up to you. You could even press the whole thing open. So this is your 4-patch unit. And for your small lap, you need to make 36 of these. Then you're going to take that 4.5 inch square that we cut and put that opposite and make sure your fabric colors are going this way, not this way. And then you're going to take some background 4.5 inch squares and put them like that. And again, just make sure your colors are going this way. You're going to sew this with a 1/4 inch seam, and this time you're going to press towards your backgrounds. You're going to do your second 1/4 inch seam and then press that open. And this is what it's going to look like when it's sewn on the front and the back. You're going to be making 36 of these, and this should be about 8.5 inches unfinished, so that when you put it in your quilt, they will be finished blocks of 8 inches. Then you're going to take this and we're going to place them just like this, and you're going to lay it out 6 by 6. And I'm going to show you that quilt now. So like I said, this is how you lay out your blocks, all the same direction. And you're going to do 6 by 6 for the small lap quilt. And I bet you could make this quilt in about an hour, maybe 2 hours. Now this one we quilted with a cute pantograph called Daisy Duo. And you can see the front of the quilt. It's really nice and fresh and modern with all of the background prints. So really, your background selection is going to be the most important selection of what you do today. And then here's our backing, and like you guys know, I always love a low volume on the back of my quilts. Thanks for watching the Jolly Bar Jumble quilt. I love it. If you haven't sewn with the Jolly Bar, you got to do that. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you on our next shortcut quilt. Quilters, are you ready to bite into our next shortcut quilt? It uses our exclusive Fat Quarter Shop pre-cut called the Jolly Bar, which are 5 by 10 inch rectangles. You just need 2 Jolly Bars and a background fabric, and today we're using the Windermere collection by Brenda Riddle and Moda Fabrics. So go to Fat Quarter Shop's free pattern page and download the No Bake Jolly Bar pattern, and let me show you how to make this quilt. Sew 2 Jolly Bar rectangles together and press open. We're sewing with Aurifil Color 2000. Then you're going to take a background 9.5 by 10 inch rectangle, place it right sides together. Then at the top and the bottom you want to sew a 1/4 inch away from the edge. This is perpendicular to your seams. Now we're going to turn our block and we're going to cut it in half parallel to your 2 stitch lines. Cutting it in half is at 5 inches. So take your Creative Grids ruler and line it up at the top and the side and cut. Now we're going to open these up and press open. You're going to get 2 unique blocks from each, and you're going to make 64 no-bake blocks. Now we're going to make our quilt rows. Assemble 7 no-bake blocks, paying close attention to block placement. Press, make 5. Now we're going to move to row 2. Assemble 7 no-bake blocks, changing your block placement. Press, make 4. Assemble all of your rows and press. This quilt was so fun and easy, and we all need quick projects to get us through. So share with me all your No Bake Jolly Bar quilts and hashtag No Bake Jolly Bar. See you next time. Hey guys, it's Kimberly from the Fat Quarter Shop, and today I'm going to show you how to make the Jolly Bar Meringue quilt. It just uses a print and a solid Jolly Bar, and if you don't know, Jolly Bars are available exclusively at Fat Quarter Shop. They're 5 inch by 10 inch rectangles of a full Moda collection. Today we're using All Weather Friend by April Rosenthal, and for this pattern you need the perfect rectangle ruler by Creative Grids. So let's get started. You can download the free Jolly Bar Meringue pattern at Fat Quarter Shop. To start, we're going to use 36 print Jolly Bars and 36 Bella solid Jolly Bars. And again, they're available at Fat Quarter Shop. So we're going to start with our print. It's our Fabric A rectangle. We've got our perfect rectangle ruler by Creative Grids. You have to have this to make the quilt. There are lines on the ruler, and you want to line up the bottom at 8.5. So you're going to line up the bottom line and the left line, and we're going to cut. So cut all the way across, and the most important part is to cut this tip. If you cut this tip, it's going to make the piecing go together great. So we've got this side done. We're going to flip and do the same exact thing. And you're going to continue until you have 72 print rectangles that have been cut. And then you're going to repeat that same step on your white, and you're going to cut these exactly the same way until you have 72 of the white rectangles. Now we're going to start putting our block together. So we've got a print rectangle and a white rectangle. These are all bias edges, so you have to be very careful when we're sewing. So we made these little notches, and I'm going to show you how you use them. You're going to put the white on top of the blue, and at the very bottom you're going to see that the very bottom of the white touches the very bottom of the blue, and you've got a little 1/4 inch triangle hanging over the edge. We're going to pin there. Then I'm not going to pin the inside yet. Then I'm going to lay this on top, move it over, and we're going to do the same thing. Where the very bottom of the blue touches the very bottom of the white, we're going to pin, and then we are going to pin lots of times throughout so that it does not move when we go to our sewing machine. I tend to be a little excessive on my pinning. And then we're going to go to the sewing machine. I'm going to use our full color 2021 today since it matches the white, and I'm going to show you how you stitch this down. So when I start a project like this, I want to start with the leader. That is going to just start catching my threads so that they don't pull out when I start. Now I'm just going to put this under and stitch. I'm using a 1/4 inch foot with a guide, and I'm going to pull out my pins as I go, and I'm using a 2.0 stitch length. And again, you're working on the bias, so just go slow. And if I was sewing this at home, I would just chain sew. I would start with the next piece. But since I'm going to pull this off the machine to show you how to iron, I'm going to end with an ender. And that way, the next time I start sewing, I don't have to worry about my thread coming off the machine. Now that we've sewn, we're going to press our unit. I am going to set the seam. That means that I just press my iron and flatten that seam, and I do use steam. And you notice I'm not ironing this way, I'm just pressing. That just kind of locks in my stitches in my seam. Then I'm going to finger press this out and then just go along the edge with my iron. This prevents it from stretching too much, because if you just took the iron and just started pushing, it's going to stretch a lot. So if you finger press it out, it's nice and flat, and you can just cut these little doggy ears off, and we can move to the next step. To put your meringue block together, you're just going to put 2 matching units next to each other. You're going to put it right sides together, and again here I'm going to pin all the way. I'm going to pin at the top, at the bottom, and then I'm just going to pin throughout. You're going to press towards the dark the same way we just pressed, where you set your seam and then you press. And you're going to make 36 blocks, and now we can put our row together. Assembling your quilt at this point is super easy. You're going to take 6 of your blocks and place them just like this. Then you're going to press one direction, either to the right or to the left. You're going to make 6 rows and do all of those the same exact pressing direction. And when you put your rows together, you're going to flip them, and all your seams are going to nest. And your quilt is going to have 6 rows of 6 blocks. So the Jolly Bar Meringue quilt is super easy, and it's going to go together great. And what I really love is there's very little waste on the fabric. You use all the fabric and you show off your collection beautifully. And remember, you need the perfect rectangle ruler to make this. You can download the free pattern at Fat Quarter Shop. This quilt is pretty small. It finishes at 48 inches square. But if you wanted to make it bigger, you could get 2 print Jolly Bars and 2 solid Jolly Bars and make 72 blocks and set it 8 blocks across and 9 rows down. I can't wait to see all of the quilts that you guys make with the free Jolly Bar Meringue pattern. See you next time. Hey guys, we have a free pattern today for you. It's called Swan Dive, and we're featuring the Fig Tree Scarlet and Sage collection, and we're using a Scarlet and Sage Jolly Bar and a color 97 Jolly Bar. And this quilt looks super hard, but with our cake mix recipe paper, it's going to be totally awesome. It's going to be using triangle paper for the entire thing, and it is a little bit advanced, but you're going to have really nice, perfect points with our cake mix paper. So let's get started. Our cake mix paper is going to be super easy. What it's going to make for you is 2 large half square triangles and 8 small half square triangles. So all the thinking is done for you. So we're going to pull 2 pages off. The paper is really nice. It's going to tear off easily, which is important when you're using triangle paper. And we're just going to be making we're going to use 2 colors today so that you can see how they play well nicely together. And today we're making the lap size. The free pattern does have 2 size options. It has a crib and a lap, but today we're going to make the lap. And you're just going to put 1 print Jolly Bar and 1 solid Jolly Bar right sides together. Place a cake mix paper on top. Put some pins, and you'll just put the pins away from the lines where you're going to be sewing. And you can put as little or as many as you like. I like to have a lot, so there's 1. And here is another. And we're going to go to our sewing machine. I'm going to use an open toe foot, and I'm going to stitch on the dotted lines. I'm going to use a small stitch length like a 1.5 to a 1.8 so that the paper is easy to pull off later. And the Jolly Bars and the cake mix paper is exclusive to Fat Crow Shop, so you'll want to pick that up today. Let's go to our sewing machine. So today I'm working with Aurifil Color 2000. It works really nice with fig tree fabric, and I always use Aurifil. Again, my stitch length is to a 1.5 to 1.8, and we're going to stitch on the dotted lines. It is important to stay as close to the line as possible. You want to be right on the line, not to the left and not to the right. And there is a start, so I should have started here and gone here, so I'm just going to pretend like I did that. I don't always pay attention to the lines on the paper, but you should, because this one will let you go in order without stopping. So now we're on line 3. When you're working with triangle paper, it's nice to have a really nice flat surface so all of your layers stay together. So this is how your paper is going to look when you're done. You're just stitching right on those dotted lines, and it's nice and flat. And I'm going to go ahead and do the second paper now also. And we're going to do it the same way. This time I'm going to actually show you how I do it at home, really. I don't follow the lines, I just go as fast as I can. So this is the way I do it, but you can do it whichever way works best for you. both papers done, and we're gonna go cut them out. Once you have all of your pieces sewn together, it's time to cut. And you're gonna cut on the solid line. It is important to be as accurate as possible to get accurate results. So I like to just go around all 4 sides first and then come back and do the center lines. It doesn't matter which order you go in, whatever is most efficient for you. And I use the same rotary blade when I'm cutting this as I do anything else. You don't have to change your rotary blade. It might get a little bit duller quicker just with the paper, but I don't really notice much of a difference. So I just treat it like normal. So we're just gonna cut all of these out. So you can see I cut around the 2 outside, and the best thing about this paper is you're not wasting very much fabric at all. So it's very efficient use of your fabric. This is like very little waste. So that's one of the best things. So we're gonna cut that, and then we're gonna cut the 2 center lines. Now I like to use a rotating mat for this part, so I can just turn it and then keep them together. Sometimes they stay together, sometimes they don't. Just put them back together. And then you're just gonna cut this line. These diagonal lines, you don't have to be as accurate because they are actually part of the seam allowance. So we've got that. Now I'm gonna show you how to pull the paper off. And everyone does this different. I like to just press the paper back and just pull it off. So that's what I like to do. And I'm gonna do that on all of these, and then you're just gonna repeat the same exact step on your other color. And then we're gonna press. So this paper comes off really nice and easy. So just do the bigger pieces first. And then I just go back and pull all this little paper off at the end. And again, you're going to do the same thing with this paper, but now I'm going to show you how you can press these. So now to press, I like to just set my seams. I do use steam. And to set your seam, you're just kind of locking your stitches in and laying it flat before you press. This whole quilt we're going to press open. To press open, what I prefer to do is press to one side first, any side. And when I'm doing half square triangles, I just keep the very edge of the iron right on the seam, and I'm not rocking my iron so that I don't move these bias edges very much. And I like to press them and stack them so they stay nicer and flatter. So I've got one side done. You can press any way you like. It is important to press open because there are so many seams, and not everybody presses open the same way I do, and that's okay. And this iron is pretty hot. Now, before I press open, I am going to cut these dog ears, because if you cut the dog ears now, you only have to cut half as much as if you do when you press open. So I'm going to cut all these dog ears off first. And now I'm going to go back and press open. So here what I like to do, now that it has cooled off a little bit, it's not hot, then I press open with my fingers and then run the iron along the seam. And then if you look on the front, it should be nice and flat. You don't have to press again on the front, but you can if you would like to. And I'm not rocking the iron because I don't want these seams to get stretchy. So as I'm setting that nice and flat, then I just finger press the next one and I just keep going. I try to go as fast as I can. And I'm not gonna lie, I do burn myself sometimes in this process. So pressing open does take a lot of time. On this quilt, it's gonna give you a really beautiful quilt that lies nice and flat. If you didn't press open, it would be very bulky on the top because you've got some small pieces. So from each print, you are gonna have 2 large half square triangles, and it's going to give you 8 small half square triangles. And now we can go and build our units. In this quilt, you're just going to be mixing a ton of fabrics together, but for each Swan Dive unit, you're going to use 2 large and 8 small that are different. So for example, these would go together for a unit, and these would go together for a unit. So we're going to focus on this one, and we're going to set this aside. And from these, we're gonna make a partial Swan Dive unit. So from 2 matching large half square triangles, we're gonna start assembling. And it's really important here that you pay attention to your pattern. And this is how it should look. Super easy. You're gonna put these right sides together. When I do that, I like to pin at each end, so that it's really nice and accurate. And then you're gonna stitch with a 1/4 inch seam all the way down. And this is how your unit is going to look. And you're going to be pressing open and have a really nice seam on the back. Now we're gonna move to our small half square triangle. So this is where you start getting the little flying geese look. So we're using the other color. And I'm just gonna lay out according to my pattern. And again, there's lots of triangles in this, so you just gotta pay attention. And then what you're gonna do is sew these together with a 1/4 inch seam, and you're going to press. Now when you're stitching these together, you're gonna put a pin at the bottom, matching your seams, but at the top, you're going to make sure you line up these 2 intersections and pin before you stitch, so that when you stitch with a 1/4 inch seam and press, all of your points are nice and perfect. And again, you're going to be pressing that open. So you're going to make 4 of these, and it's going to look just like this. And pinning is so important in this quilt. Once you have these, you're going to stitch these together with a 1/4 inch seam. And ta-da! You have all of your small half square triangles together. So that's how you put your small half square triangles together. We're going to leave that there. And then we're going to pull this together. And that is going to be how you build your unit. And on this step, what I like to do is pin on the right side and the left side. Because there are so many seams here, when you stitch, you want to put this on the bottom of your presser foot, and you're going to stitch on the top here. Now on this end, you've got intersections that meet, so you need those to nest, and then you're going to pin, and then here you're going to nest. You've got 2 points, so I'm going to call a polka pin. This is what I do. I put a pin in the very top intersection and the bottom intersection. Let my pin be nice and flat, and then I put a pin on the right and on the left, and that keeps that really nice. And here, because we've got so many seams, I'm just going to put another pin. And when you go to your sewing machine, stitch with a 1/4 inch seam, and again, leave all of this on the bottom. You've got more seams here, so it's easier to stitch on the top, and just let the feed dogs pull all of this in. So here is your partial Swan Dive unit, and these triangle papers, see how beautiful they make all of your half square triangles? So to make your block, you just need 4 units. So first you're just gonna lay them out, and in the center, you're gonna get a pinwheel effect with the large half square triangles. So you just wanna make sure you have them laid out, and just double check. And again, you're going to be pinning. You will pin in every single intersection, and if you've got 2 half square triangles next to each other, make sure they nest. You're just gonna stitch down this seam, press open, and stitch down the other seam and press open. So this is how beautiful your Swan Dive block is. Now in our free pattern, we've got assembly instructions to make it into either a crib or a lap, so just follow those for your layout. And if you're too intimidated by something that big, you could start and just make 1 block and turn it into a pillow. I can't wait to see all of the quilts that you guys make with this Swan Dive free pattern. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for all of our free patterns, and I'll see you next time.